Welcome to Michael Ian Hammond ECO. To talk about the Human Brain Project a little further and to highlight some of the dangers in which the Human Brain Project is more than likely going to be heading towards, we do know that the project itself has got a plan for future war. Because this project has shown itself and based its science knowledge and technology development structure around medical care to try and raise funding from global resource pools to be able to further fund and develop their program of their new computer system. One of the things that was recognised and found in top secret papers during the cleanup was plans of indoctrination. In the room where they found this abomination of the very first attempts of a human brain project hooked up to technology. The development that they had in 1944 was nowhere near as strong as the development science that they have now. The development science after the war years went on further and longer behind the wall of Berlin. The Berlin Wall was created and put together after World War II. Now, the reason why they put this project together was so that they could continue their research. Behind the wall was a development including the knowledge of the abomination, which was the Human Brain Project. They managed to seal off and segment a city, capturing a whole load of a population of people behind that wall. Austria as a population have very little concern regarding population or even the existence, or very little compassion towards any other nation and any other people. They are purely a selfish group of individuals that will use a human resource for their own desire. Because they're incapable as a nation and a body of people in literally being compassionate towards others, they have used what they wield in themselves naturally as inhuman and started these science projects. Now, to use a human brain and to hook it up to any form of technology to try and see whether they can wield anything out of it is one of the Austrian sciences that I found when I was in their country. They have always had this interest, and they've always had very low regard to the torturous ways and torturous attitudes that they hold. And they are people that I have seen in my generation smile and laugh and consider all of this to be absolutely nothing at all to be concerned over or even be worried. And they will use a human body to try and wield some kind of science out of it. Now, behind the wall of Berlin, the project completed itself. And when the wall came down and the Berlin situation was ended, very little came out, really, regarding what went on behind the wall. Initially, to control the population, Austria decided to rule in a regime of terror, and they would capture and torture the population that had been captured behind the wall. That's a process that Austria uses not only in my country today, but is something that they use as a control system to manage a population. They try to instill fear, then they try to instill that they are a powerful people. Then they try to instill that they can wield this powerful attitude and the powerful behaviour and torture people, so it will bring a fear and a regime control over the population. Once they'd managed to torture enough people behind the Berlin Wall to basically subdue a captured people, they then started their project of taking the tortured that they'd killed and started to use their body parts and their brains to be able to wield this so-called Austrian science. The investigation of the brain and the investigation of interfacing the brain with technology was an Austrian way of desired operation. Once they'd completed their tests and tortured a people, and when the Berlin Wall came down, that's when the Human Brain Project showed itself on a global scientific market base. It showed itself, and it had footage and video articles and scientists of groups of individuals, and they must have built some kind of survival route for some of the population that were captured behind the wall. Some of those was probably an option to be able to work with the regime and become the scientists and to help develop the project. Because of the amount of media and the amount of footage that was found regarding the Human Brain Project, when you look at the early stages of their so-called new development structures, this had had years and years and years of development and years of research long before this so-called new news release of new development in new technological advancements, of new computing, actually ever showed itself. So it means that the footage is evidence in itself that there were quite a few years of development and quite a few years of training scientists and training people in the area of all this new science work to be able to produce the full Human Brain Project team. And because it came out of Berlin and behind and from the Berlin Wall, it was brought into a world that had developed computer systems and developed global internet connection networks, and was able to create and build the artificial intelligence area of development. So because they were able to put together this artificial environment, they then looked for further global funding to try and clean the project up, really, and to bring it into public domain, and also into the to bring it to the population's attention that there was a new science on Earth. Because it's in development, and because it's in the process of being created, and because it was also seen in the early stages as being the main abomination of something that could not be explained during the years of 1944, or even after 45 and 6, or even the reason why it was even attempted to be developed. This is why the British government left the defensive structures and orders and gave it to the population of its natural growth. These orders were passed down by people of trained soldiers from the 1944 World War II years. I was trained by ex-military that were friends of my grandfather, and I was trained by secret individuals from government to be able to manage and maintain a communicational network if England fell towards the Austrian Reich. We'd had them in the country many years before World War II, and they created a dark age in my country. And there was a lot of maiming and torturing that went on even in those years. It's just a profile of a nation called Austria that is proven that they just don't seem to want to stop their regime nor their way of life, and they don't seem to want to stop their delight in torturing people either. They have also proven and fulfilled the profile that was written down to be able to look for and highlight if it ever reared itself in great numbers, and then get all the news out to the rest of the global tribal people, and also to the rest of other nations' leaders, as one of the gravest warnings that Europe can ever really produce. There is a portion of the earth which doesn't and has not experienced the mountains of Austria. But what I can say is that during the old and ancient world of the old world, there is knowledge in your nations. There is information regarding these people. They were there in the days of your world. They were there during the days of your development. And they were known as the